Viktor Frankl said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's way. This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson. Stay tuned for the next hour as Sue explores the human psyche, what makes us tick, and how to live better, more fulfilled, and more meaningful lives. Only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson, and my guest today is Marie Sukers. Marie has been with me twice before. If you want to listen to the podcast, there was one in October 2024. We called it We Heal, We Overcome. And then this year, we did one in January, Carve a Tunnel of Hope. You can find those on the High FM podcasts under Finding Human, or you can find them on the YouTubes for Sue Jackson and Les Glassman. Hello, Marie. It's so nice to see your face. Where are you? I see you warmly dressed.
Yes. Good morning, Sue. Good morning to your listeners. I'm in beautiful Cape Town.
Aren't you lucky? Before we go on, I actually just wanted to thank Carol Kay. I see last week, Carol, you sent me a lovely message on the Telegram, and I only picked it up afterwards. Plus, many listeners from Israel contacted me because they were very moved by the young woman that I quoted, and I spoke to my daughter, and many people were very moved by the young woman's resilience in Israel, the lack of hate, and also how they're trying to raise their children in this time of war. So thank you all for those messages. I really appreciate it. Today, Marie and I are going to be talking about her recent trip to Israel and the ramifications that have come from that. But more than anything else, I was listening to a Palestinian pastor this morning, and he was an Arab Christian from Bethlehem. And it was incredibly interesting. He was saying that the Christians' response to the many images coming out of Gaza has been mixed, as it has for all of us Jews as well, especially the ones of the children. And he was saying that the one was debunked that they put out there about the image of children, how many children were going to be killed in the next few hours after days from starvation. And he said the UN has now retracted that. And so he said you have to have reliable sources on both sides. But Marie, where do we find those reliable sources?
It is a very good question, because I think the prevailing narratives where you have political aims on either side, specifically when it is to promote violence and that furthers the cause of war rather than brings peace, it is critical for credible voices to be heard. And that's why the efforts of humanitarian organizations and for them to remain objective and without bias serve the innocent people and let their voices speak is so important. Where to find those in this very fragmented and divisive debate around what is actually humanitarian crises, both for Israelis that live under the trauma of war, as well as for people that are living under the threat of terrorism and in an environment where they are constantly barraged with war, and having to grow up your children in that. I can only imagine. It is very difficult. It is a question that I constantly ask myself, and one of the big reasons why we took the members of parliament of various political parties to Israel.
You know, I need to just explain who you are for people who haven't heard you yet on my other programs. But Marie Sukers is a former MP for Parliament for the African Christian Democratic Party, the ACDP. She is now the founder of the Voice to Parliament, the VTP. Now, what do you hope to achieve from that Voice to Parliament that you have started?
Yeah, so what I am hoping to do is to reflect the voices of our communities here in South Africa, and to ensure that the constitutional duty of Parliament to ensure service delivery and the interest of those communities are serviced by those that is put into the privileged role of serving our country across racial and political and religious lines, that is going to happen. So Voice to Parliament is to advocate, to lobby. Most importantly, for the next 4 years is our grassroots, building up a grassroots movement to educate people on what is their constitutional obligations of public representatives and parliament, and to fight for education reform and rural development.
Also worthwhile. We'll get back to that in a moment.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
If you have a small business, think about this. Imagine you ran an amazing special offer, and imagine that High FM told 125,000 people about it. Imagine we also posted your special offer on our social media platforms and listed you on our website. Imagine you could do all of that on a month-to-month basis. What would that be worth to you? High FM has a special stimulus package for small businesses, and you should get in touch to find out more. Our email is info@highfm.com, or you can send a text to +27 61 895 1019, and we'll call you. 101.9 High FM, 101.9 megahertz of building community businesses. I am back with Marie Sukers, and she was just explaining to me what she would like to be doing, and for the community, for South Africans. You know, Mother Teresa said something so interesting once. She said, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples." Marie, you are a ripple creator. Is it sometimes very difficult to be that ripple creator?
It is exhausting sometimes. It's overwhelming when you live in a country where the challenges intensifies because every day you are confronted. Remember, for 6 years, I worked almost 7 days a week. And because of my husband says, overdeveloped sense of responsibility, I never switched my phone off, because I believed that coming from corporate, I learned you answer the phone after the third ring. You never allow any message to go unattended. So I brought the same mindset to my work within politics and aim to do exactly that. So it can be quite exhausting. The last year has been a reprieve. I focused on working on the Israel project and focused on education reform more than anything, and really dialed it down and rested most of the time. So the sense of exhaustion has left me. I am refueled. And yes, it can be very difficult, but I think it has been a very good learning in terms of the toolbox to ensure that you don't burn out.
Absolutely, I'm quite sure. And I know that one of your aims, you were saying, is that to cherish our democratic country, whose democracy is actually under threat at the moment.
Yeah, it is important for people to also know that the constitutional review is ending on the 30th of May. They can go onto the government website and just read up on that and make any inputs that you want to make in terms of if there is any constitutional review that you advocate for. Yes, it is. Democracy is under threat, Sue, when public representatives forget their duty. Their duty is not to their party. It is not to a certain section of the community. When you swear an oath as a member of parliament, you swear to uphold the constitutional values and to serve the people of South Africa within that framework. So when we have public representatives that act outside of the interest of our country through policy positions or international policy positions, that puts at risk the economic well-being of our country and puts at risk communities in our country for them to be targeted either through threats, intimidation, or harassment, as we've seen, then yes, our democracy is under threat, and South Africans of all races should know that we have an obligation to honor the 1994 commitment that we've decided that we will be a nation under democratic dispensation, and we need to fight for those. So yes, the acts against the Jewish community, the acts of threat, the fact that your chief rabbi needs to have 10 people protecting him, and nothing is being done to address those dangers against public figures, people of faith, and public representatives who has been targeted, harassed, intimidated because they went to Israel. Our democracy is under threat when we do not speak up and fight back against those voices.
So I must admit, what you say rings very true for me. And the Voice to Parliament, which you founded, seeks to create opportunities, as you say in your one article, for voices that are not normally heard in Parliament. So if I had something to say maybe about the anti-Semitism in the government, in the ANC government at the moment, and especially with our the genocide case against Israel, how would I go about putting that to you for those voices to be heard?
There are two things that we need to do with Voice to Parliament. The one way in which we have worked to advocate for communities, and specifically for the Jewish community that did feel isolated, was to work with South Africa Friends of Israel, of course, to bring those members of parliament to Israel. Now I am at the creative side of how do we address, and one of the things on Monday we've identified is the next phase for us is to address anti-Semitism, and to speak, not only to speak against it, but to raise awareness. And especially in our communities, to know, I said to you before, I had very little interaction with the Jewish community. And it has been such an eye-opener. I fell in love with the Jewish community, I think, because of our faiths being so tied together in terms of the values and the values that we espouse for as Christian, Judeo-Christian faiths. That has similar faiths. How do you work with us? I think you can support our work as Voice to Parliament. We have identified anti-Semitism as a campaign that we want to develop within this year. I should just tell your listeners as well, we have 3 objectives in this year. The one is education reform. The second has to do with the 1 Million Women campaign that we are also have identified. It is a 4-year campaign with annual events around them.
Tell me a bit about that, the 1 Million Women.
It is to raise 1 million women around what is most cherished by us as women that share with the shared values of Judaism and Christianity, the shared values around what the world we want our children to inherit. And those million voices is to advocate for the policies that will reflect those values, and where it does not, to oppose and challenge that, and to challenge it through the mechanisms of Parliament. One of the things that why Voice to Parliament is such an important role, has such an important role to play, is because we find more and more that in the democratic dispensation, in the 7th administration, you see it very clearly, very few of our members of parliament understand their role, that they need to serve all communities. They need to act within the interest of our country. And this is why we need to get the women's voices organized to advocate, to put pressure, and to ensure that you will not ignore us. There is too much ignorance around that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Absolutely. There is a lot of ignorance, and women's voices need to be heard. Okay. Dis-Chem Wellness Clinic for Adults offers convenient and professional care to help you manage health risks Whether you're having your regular wellness check, such as blood pressure or cholesterol, Dis-Chem Wellness Clinics offers you a broad range of health screening services, including female health screening with pap smears, family planning, and pregnancy screening. Fast, affordable, and with care. Find your nearest Dis-Chem pharmacies. Better health starts here. And I just want to add that Dis-Chem definitely reaches out to the greater community and does a lot. Thank you, Craig.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue on 101.9 High FM, and I'm back with Marie Sukers. And you're about to hear a short audio clip. It's of Marie talking. I have played it before, but it's really worth listening to. Thank you, Craig.
You cannot kill the innocent, burn their houses, kidnap them and take them far from home, and say that it is a just cause. My name is Marie Sukers. I'm from South Africa. I'm a member of parliament in the National Assembly. And as a political leader in a country that comes from a fractured past, the responsibility of leaders to embrace principles of justice and peace has never been more emphasized to me than this experience. The world owes Israel an apology. What our government has done has literally isolated and marginalized the Jewish community in South Africa that has contributed to our country. We are sorry that we did not come to assist with a path that will take you out of war and in a conflict that has really been painful for you and for your families. We are sorry that we contributed to your sense of isolation and being alone in this, and for you to relive the threat. We need the Jewish people, we need Israel to continue to exist.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue, and I'm back with Marie Sukers. And if you'd like to telegram us, send a message, you can do so on 061 895 1019. Marie, that was done, I think it was after your last visit to Israel last year. You have just come back again, and in our Jewish report this last week, there was an article on attacks on MPs show anxiety of anti-Israel lobby. And it said, yet another female politician who went on the recent fact-finding mission to Israel was viciously bullied and subjected to verbal abuse in Cape Town on the 14th of May. I must just add here, I see that Sebo Vilakazi held her hand as she was being attacked. Other people pointed her out, other members of parliament, but he held her hand and stood beside her. I know Sebo well, and I'm just so absolutely in awe of the fact that he was not a casual bystander watching what was happening. He stepped forward, took her hand, showing that he was on her side, was there to protect her, which I think takes huge courage. Thank you for that, Sebo, if you happen to be listening. Now, Marie, what sort of backlash? Well, how did this all come about, first of all? Let's go back to when you decided to go back and the people that you chose to go on the trip with you.
I think it is really one of the most profound experiences, first of all, to go to Israel for any Christian. But within the context of the war in October the 7th, it amplifies the experience. The crisis in the Middle East affects every single country on the globe. And the conflict itself is spilling over into our universities, onto our streets, as we see here in Cape Town, and affects, no one is unaffected by it. So going to Israel, for me, was important to be part of the project because it has the position that the South African government has taken, has a material impact on our economy, on our communities, inevitably, because the economy affects our community. We're sitting with an unemployment rate of 40%. So the policy positions of the current administration and the one before has a dire impact on my community. And for that reason, I said my biggest responsibility is towards the communities that I serve. When it was as a member of parliament, that was for all of South Africa. Now, as a activist, I think that's the name you would give it, it is important for me that my communities and the vulnerable communities of especially that their interests are foremost. So being part of that project was a no-brainer for me. Part of it, of course, is my love for Israel, the love for the Jewish people, because my Christian faith, like I said before. South Africa Friends of Israel, when they started with the planning of the trip, came to me to ask to assist in terms of putting together the initial sort of long list of members of parliament. It was made very clear that it is a faith mission. It is a faith mission. It is for Christian MPs that feels close to Israel, has never been there, and would want to see Israel and know what it is like to be in that country now and what the experience of the Jewish people is. The project did go beyond that after our initial engagements, and we put together a list of members of parliament that foremost are Christian, and then secondly, that has a keen desire to really know what is the situation on the ground. So it became most and primarily a fact-finding mission. The narratives around the Israel being an apartheid state, there is a genocide happening, those things are very important for members of parliament in their oversight role, for them to verify the facts. Because remember, parliament is an oversight. It is constitutionally, it's mandated to oversee the work of government. Within the different departments, chief of which is the Department of International Affairs, where this is concerned in terms of South Africans' actions against Israel and South Africa's position. So it was part of that overall context of SAFI's mandate to strengthen relations between South Africa and Israel around faith-based diplomacy, and Voice to Parliament's aim of engaging around what is in the best interest of our community and strengthening oversight at a parliamentary level. So that was, sort of tied the objectives together. And my role was really just to assist them in putting together that network of members of parliament.
Now, I see you met President Herzog, who is, I find him to be, I have never met him, but just listening to him, I kind of almost feel a sense of peace when I listen to him. It gives me hope, because he doesn't come from a place of hate at all. And so just hearing, I just feel calmer somehow about my family in Israel when I hear him. But I'm sure you went back up south again with to the different kibbutzim that were attacked on the 7th of October, did you?
Yes, we went to Faraza.
Okay.
And that was an overwhelming experience, Sue. The first time I went, I really was just a sponge taking in everything. It was my first time in the country. The second time was, it was raw. It's the best word to use. It was raw. It was months after we really, I think the second time when you go is how much can a nation bear? For me, that was really, how long will this continue? For the people of Gaza and for the Israelis, how long can this go on? To be constantly under the barrage of missile attacks. The fact that we have so few independent voices coming out of Gaza is problematic, because the voices of the people of Gaza gets missing in all of this campaigning that is highly political without the human element of what does it mean for an ordinary Gazan to be living this? I don't know, because they don't have. I saw this morning the report that Hamas is opposing any aid that comes through any other channels unless it goes through them. And in the message, there is a very clear message that anybody receiving aid or assisting in any way would suffer dire consequences. Now, in terms of, this is why democracy is such an important, it's so important for us to protect the principles of democracy, because when people do not have freedom and agency, it has a material impact on them, and all the more for us to fight and protect what we have in terms of freedom to express, freedom of choice, freedom to say, you can go out there and stand in front of Parliament and protest Ramaphosa without you suffering, dire consequences to your well-being or health. And so it is very important to be there, not only to hear I love what I learned in Israel, to be a witness, to witness the pain, to witness what it meant for ordinary people, that these were civilians. It's important to underline it is civilians that suffered this and what they suffered. We literally wept. People literally wept. Literally wept. Faraza was especially the kibbutzim when we were there, the lady that took us through, on the what happened on that day. She lost her life partner, father to her children. She said something that was very profound. She said that I was born here, I lived here for all of my life. Every single person who died in this kibbutzim, I knew. So you have lost not only your people that are very close to you, but you've literally lost people that you've considered friends, family. So the trauma of that, I think if the world would take a moment to listen, if we would actually do what is, as you know, as a therapist, if you want to deal with conflict, if you want to remove the poison out of dysfunction, we need to be able to listen to each other. I just hope that we can come to a place where the noise of violence, because that's what it's propagating, the voice of violence becomes less, and the voice of pain will start to be heard. Whether it be a Gazan mother or a child, or whether it be an Israeli mother and child, life is precious. Life is not, value to life is not based on what your color of your skin is or your nationality. But this conflict has dehumanized people. And it's dehumanizing Jewish people that have suffered some of the worst things in one day in families. For me, that is the most important thing that happened in this trip, was for these MPs to understand what happened on October the 7th. And it was really, really hard.
I'm sure it was. I went to a talk, and it was all on, like, we had to wear these glasses or 3D showing us all the absolute atrocities, and the Nova Festival and all those cars. There's a car graveyard now. That was and then of course I went to Hostage Square as well, and
yes,
everything is very heartbreaking. And the Israelis love children. I mean, those are the children. I've said this before. Israeli children think that they're all prime ministers, and they have a very set opinion. But I've spoken to quite a few of the young people who have been called up for the IDF. And it's incredibly hard for them to go in. There's a love of children in the Israelis, and in Jews in general. The children are our future. And even wherever you are, you'll see people stopping to chat to little children, no matter what the color is, here in South Africa. And I'm talking about, I was at one of the hypermarkets the other day, a largely Jewish area, and I saw two elderly women, and they were chatting to this one little girl, who a colored little girl who had dreadlocks in her hair. And these two elderly Jewish women were so fascinated by these dreadlocks. And this little girl was looking at them with her wide open eyes while they were touching her hair and asking how long it took. And I thought, if only we could see that that is a part of humanity, to recognize the beauty in one another, and especially in our children. Let our children grow up without this hatred. And that was one of the questions that I put to a group of young women who have immigrated from France, from England, from South Africa to Israel. And I asked, how do you teach your children not to hate? And they said, that's been one of the hardest things, is to teach your children that they have to be aware that there are differences now, but not to hate. That's a big thing to teach children. Just coming from apartheid era myself, as a young child, I can really understand how difficult that is when you're getting this narrative pushed down your throat all the time. We're going to get back to that in a moment.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, you're about to hear another very short audio clip on finding hope in tragedy, and it's actually from Viktor Frankl's wisdom.
Finally, we'll look at the fourth insight, tragic optimism. Even in the face of tragedy, can we say yes to life? Frankl's concept of tragic optimism is about maintaining hope and finding meaning despite life's inevitable suffering. He shared stories of fellow prisoners who inspired others by staying hopeful, even in dire circumstances. For Frankl, this mindset was not about ignoring pain, but embracing it as part of life's richness. By acknowledging life's difficulties and still choosing to find meaning, we can foster resilience and inner strength. This philosophy is especially relevant today as we face personal and global challenges. It reminds us that hope and meaning are choices we make even when the world feels chaotic.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue, and I'm back with Marie Sukers, and you've just heard that very short video clip, audio clip at least, on still holding on to hope. Now, do you hold on to hope for Israel, Marie? And for Gaza?
Sue, I think for many South Africans, the reality of what we face as a country here at home, what millions of people face, the stark realities of poverty, unemployment, what that means, has taught me something in the 5 years, because every single day you deal with problems. When you're a member of parliament, you just deal with problems. There's never a moment that you're dealing with something that is, lighthearted or inspirational, so to speak. Yes, you get people who inspire you. But what it did teach me was the need to always be filled with hope and to seek it out, Mm-hmm. So when I was in Israel now, I think the thing that spoke the most to me was the elements of our faith that is so similar and this was for me the beauty of it all, is going back to the Nova Festival grounds and seeing all of these memorials that has been erected in memory of all of the young lives lost. And one of the survivors of the Nova Festival coming to speak to us. And what I saw was the value of life, you know. I said in our parting that the thing that stood out the most for me and that I would take home is the Jewish people's value of every single life. In South Africa, we have 70 people die every day. It has become part of our lives, and nowhere as a nation are we stopping to say that this carnage is robbing us of precious potential, that maybe if we would stop to value the tragedy of lives lost, that we would become serious of combating the scourge of violence that is taken over our country. But in your country, what fills me with hope,
This is
and I
my
should not
country.
say,
You mean
I should
Israel?
not say your country, I should say Israel. In Israel, because you are South African. What fills me with hope in Israel is the value of life. So I saw a Jewish saying, and you must help me, that says, every life lost is a world lost. And yes, and so what fills me with hope is the Jewish people's belief, their faith in God, seeing their families, the emphasis on families, and it's worth preserving. Hey, it's worth preserving, and so yes, I have hope. I have a hope for your country, for not your country, our country, South Africa, that we will be able to unite 1 million women around the cause for Christian Judeo principles to be protected, and for family to be protected in South Africa, and for Israel that there would come peace, and for the people of Gaza that there would come peace.
Absolutely. Amen to that. I was just thinking, Marie, about your background. And if anyone wants to know Marie's background, because we did cover it on one of our programs, but there are wonderful articles called Raised by God from Poverty to Purpose, Marie Sukers. If you just go onto Google under Marie Sukers, there are actually a few parts to the story. And Marie comes from an incredibly difficult background. And yet her mom, no matter how difficult her mother's life was, she taught them values. And Marie's mother was actually kidnapped and sold at the age of 11 and had her first child just after 12. So, that was the background into a very abusive marriage. This was the background that Marie was brought up in. And yet, despite all of that, her mom instilled in her children that they needed to have a voice. And her mom was not, as we would call, educated, but she was definitely wise, unbelievable wisdom. And sometimes wisdom is far better than education, quite honestly, especially where our children are concerned, because your mother's role in your life was huge. What do you believe that in South Africa, and you just said that in Israel, that's what you saw was the role of family. What do you feel we can learn from Israel and bring into our families in South Africa, especially as mothers in rural areas struggling?
So I think the greatest assault on the colored and black communities in South Africa under apartheid is the impact on family, the total disintegration of families, where men was taken from the homelands and they came and worked as seasonal or stay in the hostels when they worked on the mines. And the family was left, the women literally raised the children, and families were broken up, and men took on girlfriends or women in the,
new families.
new families, and there's a whole story of brokenness, which mine exemplifies.
Yeah.
My story exemplifies what apartheid, the impact of
The
apartheid
damage
on
of it. Mm.
Yeah. So when I look at Israel and I see, especially in your kibbutzim, when I see communal living, the working in the communal interest, the way families function, the functionality of family, and how faith plays a huge role in keeping families together, and for the role of men especially, to the role that men play in preserving family. Those are the values that are in South Africa, and we need to emulate, or we need to be again taught. How do we bring wholeness into a system that is so broken? And so this is why this network of women is so important for me.
Absolutely.
Becoming organized in that way around Christian Judeo values and principles. And there is an ignorance. There's an ignorance. I almost see it as the middle class comfort, right? Where people are so insulated that you almost, me and my island, as long as we are okay. The truth is, and as we've seen with October the 7th, we are not insulated. We are interconnected. We are interdependent on each other. I mean, if you consider the impact of the kibbutzim and what they've experienced and how their need for healing and the many interventions that are being done to provide the kind of support to those families. In South Africa, we don't have that.
We don't have that. Thank you, Craig.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue, and I'm back with Marie Sukers, and our time, as always, is running very close to the end. But, Marie, what you said there touched a chord in me, because I do believe, and I see it here within our community, our Jewish community, and all the different synagogues, the connectedness, and especially since 2023 and the 7th of October, we are needing to all support each other again. And yet the outreach programs to our greater community of other faiths and other colors still goes on. So while we are looking very closely to what we can do to support one another through everything that's happening, especially as so many of us have got families in Israel, with the care, to the outreach has not stopped. And that to me is also fantastic to know that has gone on, that our community are still looking at the South African community and at the greater South African community and saying, how can we make a difference? And I think that's something that often people don't understand. Now, just going back to a moment to your trip to Israel, I see that it's Kenneth Meshwi. Okay, he reiterated that his party does not condone South Africa's genocide case against Israel in the International Court of Justice, but said it does sympathize with the plight of the innocent Palestinians. So when you were in Israel, did you get a chance to talk to any Palestinians?
Yeah, we went to Bethlehem, and on the day that we went to Bethlehem, we did meet with Christian, Arab Christians that live in Bethlehem and lives in Samaria. So that was helpful to also, provide that window of insight so that people understand from their perspective how they see it.
And what did you learn from them?
Well, I think the biggest thing that stood out was and for many South Africans, it was very difficult. For many of the MPs, it was very difficult to understand. When we went before we went to Bethlehem, as we were going to Samaria, our Jewish guide left the bus. And he left the bus because it was, and later on it became more clearer to us. He left the bus and a Christian Arab came to take the tour further. But there was these boards that said that it was not safe for Jewish people to be there.
That's the apartheid there in those areas. You can see it, can't you? Mm.
And that understanding of the reality of the Middle East, which unfortunately is lacking in most of the Western world, to understand the dynamics of the region. And this is why the voices of the Gazans need to become heard. It's not heard. What we see is a political campaign. We basically see a very aggressive ideological campaign, but the voices of the vulnerable, most affected, we don't hear.
We don't hear. And unfortunately on that, we're going to have to wrap up, and we'll go on praying, quite honestly, and supporting one another in our country without fear, just to support one another, to realize we're all in this time. Right now, we've been chosen to be in this time in world history. And Mother Teresa, I would like to just say, she says, if we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. And we do belong to each other. And Marie, it's been lovely being with you. How would you like to end?
Well, I just want to say to the Jewish community all over the world, because you are a global star, I believe. So I want to say to all of the Jewish community, you are loved, and we stand and we support and pray for you and Israel.
Thank you, Marie. Wonderful being with you, and we will do it again soon. Maybe we'll meet in Israel soon. God bless. Craig said, wrap up. Thank you, Marie. Take
God
care.
bless.
Bye.